say you wanna watch a drama. You say you wanna watch a comedy. Well, you can watch it with your mama, or you can watch it with your daddy. You'll even sit and watch it with your middle schooler, so you can come and talk around a water cooler. We're watching all day and all night. Couch potatoes unite. Whoa, whoa. Couch potatoes unite. Whoa, whoa. Couch potatoes unite.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the podcast entitled Couch Potatoes Unite! Which is based on a blog of the same name because it's a not-so-new sleeve for our brand, if you will. I'm the blogger in question and the self-styled chief couch potato. My name is Kylie and I love TV. If you feel the same, keep listening and or checking out our website, couchpotatoesunite.wordpress.com, as you're bound to find some common ground or something you like. For Couch Potatoes Unite, we're all about the wonders and unique long-form storytelling of the small screen. CPU, ! Hopes you've been following releases of brand new episodes of the podcast on Wednesdays, as well as new blog entries on some Tuesdays. And as always, we have several more new episodes on the way. Because the panelists and I live lives behind our podcast, the episodes are published once per week. Subscribe to the blog or the podcast via iTunes, Stitcher Radio, via Google Play, and now on Spotify to stay on top of brand new episodes. Episodes already published discuss a variety of shows around the water cooler, including but not limited to Fuller House, Westworld, The Good Place, Grace and Frankie, Arrested Development, Jane the Virgin, Schitt's Creek, Doctor Who, Supernatural, and Orange is the New Black. Plus new episodes are in the works, including revisits for Gotham, Game of Thrones, Stranger Things, iZombie, Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., 13 Reasons Why, The Crown, American Horror Story, and the DCTU series will break down the Crisis on Infinite Earths. We'll be launching new panels covering Riverdale, The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, Mr. Robot, Charmed, Outlander, The Breaking Bad Universe, and This Is Us. And because we look back at shows now past, we'll take a smallish look back at a short-term show from some yesteryear, namely Freaks and Geeks. We'll put out some musical stops for our crazy ex-girlfriend. We'll revisit one of the all-time and most-watched classic sitcoms, MASH, and we'll consider the moral implications and quick cancellation of Dollhouse. By the way, did you know that CPU also from time to time goes live? We've been live from bunkers and comedy shows and Comic-Cons, and we just went live from Blue Bridge Games to take a shiny look back at Firefly. Plus, we're planning more live appearances and other cool stuff. So make sure you like or follow us at our Facebook page, our Twitter at CPU Podcast, our Instagram at Couch Potatoes Unite, or subscribe to the blog, our YouTube channel, our iTunes channel, our Stitcher Radio channel, or find us on Google Play as well as on Spotify. In the meantime, if you don't hear your show in this podcast format, fellow panelists and I still write reviews, and we always seek new panelists. So if you have any interest in joining the discussion, say hello by finding us at any of those outlets I've mentioned. At the very least, stop by and leave us a thumbs up, comment, or review. We like feedback. Just lay off our stacks. Verbal feedback is fine. Today, we're around the water cooler and taking a first look at a Netflix streaming original based upon a dystopian science fiction novel of the same name. And that name is Altered Carbon. If you're not already aware, you should know that from time to time, your chief couch potato and main moderator, that's me, needs a break, particularly when I think others are more passionate about the show we are discussing in the moment. Case in point, this particular panel series, which I'm not here to moderate, will not alter that carbon in the slightest. Rather, frequent panelist Spencer takes his first turn at the moderating microphone to kick off this series of changeable element number 6, while joined by 2 frequent panelists, 1 occasional panelist, and 1 brand new panelist, as well as yours truly kicking back panelist style. You may have heard Spencer's voice on our panels for Downton Abbey, Gotham, the Marvel's Defenders series, the DCTU series, the Sherlock series, Person of Interest, Battle Creek, The Crown, Firefly, the aforementioned Firefly, and the Arrested Development series. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Spencer to the moderating microphone. Take it away, Spencer!
Hello, and as you can probably hear, my voice sounds a little croaky. I ported into a bad sleeve that's got a broken voice box. So, I am Spencer, and tonight I am not the chief couch potato, probably the English couch potato. Let's call me King Edward. So, what we're going to do tonight is we're going to go around and introduce ourselves, and I'd like you to, when you introduce yourself, go along with one of the standard couch potato podcast descriptions that goes with the character in the show, and they are as follows. This is about your interest in the show. You find yourself in a new place that you have not expected, but you want to find out the truth about everything, and you can't stop watching, like Takashi Kovacs. You love it, despite your better judgment, and secretly, or not so secretly, you find it exciting. Watching it gives you purpose, though you thought you had otherwise lost that. Even if some parts or characters can be insufferable to you, like Detective Krista Ortega. You adore it. But it's because you've been looking for something like this for a very long time, and now you feel compelled to be there at every moment, like Poe. You don't always know what's going on, but you find yourself riveted and find a purpose in it, like Vernon Elliot. You see it as a necessary evil in trying to solve your own murder, but you think you are superior to all of it, like Lawrence Bancroft. You're not a fan of it, but you got through all 10 episodes, so you could be together at the end, like Raylene Kawahara. You hate it. You hate it with a sense of purpose, and you want it to stop at any cost, like Mr. Luang. Who'd like to go first?
I'm Kels. Have formerly gone by Kelsey on this podcast.
Hi, Kels.
Hey, what's up? I started watching this show because it came up on my Netflix. It was like, Netflix was like, hey, you might want to watch this. And I was like, hey, I think you're right. I do want to watch this. So I started watching it. And I was like, this looks really sweet. I want to be on a podcast about this show. Then I told my wife about it. And I was like, you should watch this show with me. It's pretty sweet. And there's strippers in it.
And that was Selene hooked then.
Yeah. You know me.
I was
Yeah, and then so we actually like watched the first episode. And then did not watch the rest of it until we knew we were going to be recording this podcast because we have terrible memories and we knew we'd have to rewatch it anyway. So yes, it is now fresh in our minds. And I loved the show and everything about it, and I needed to know what was happening. So I am going to say I was Takashi Kovacs.
Nice.
Welcome back.
Welcome back, yeah.
Thank you.
Being as I was partially introduced, I guess I'll go next. I'm Selene.
Hi, Selene.
Hello.
Hello.
So my wife came up to me and was like, hey, you should watch this show. And I was like, oh, hey, I'm going to butcher your name, but Daichen Lockman is in this.
Daichen Lockman.
Daichen Lockman.
You were so close.
Very close.
I was like, that's Anya from The 100. I love her. And she's also in Dollhouse. So yeah, let's watch it. And thus it happened.
And strippers.
Well, yeah. And you already gave that part away. I figured I didn't need to bring it up again.
Dynamics.
This is my wife. So yeah, that's how we started watching it. I am also, I would have to say I'm kind of Takeshi and Kristen Ortega. I wouldn't necessarily say it's against my better judgment, but I secretly, not so secretly love it. And I find it very exciting, and yes, there are certain characters I hate.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to the writing. Well, welcome, Selene.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey!
My name's Julianne.
Hi, Julianne.
Julianne.
Thanks, I'm new.
The new one.
I'm the new one. I
She's got a
like
fresh and shiny sleeve.
it. Yes, for now. So I came to watch this show. I just saw the cover for it on Netflix, and I feel like it was kind of at the beginning of the last year, I think, is when it came out. And I love anything that can be described as Blade Runner vibes. So I was like immediately in. And I watched it back then, and then I just watched it again recently in preparation, and I was really happy that I loved it just as much. And the first time I saw this show, I liked it, but I wanted more, so I ended up reading the book. And that kind of helped flesh out the world a little bit more. I love sci-fi, and I'm very interested in this world building, so that's kind of how it came to be. I would say I'm a Takeshi. I, too, don't care about anyone. That's what I would say.
Well, welcome.
Welcome to the podcast, Julianne.
Strong start.
Strong start.
Yep.
My name's Ben. I am related to Kels. She is my sister, and then Selene is my sister-in-law. So
Dynamics.
excited to be here.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what we call a CPU disclaimer.
And will be happening every time we talk about the show.
So much like everyone else that I think has watched it, it popped up on Netflix. I read the description, watched the trailer, and went, well, that is exactly what I want to watch. And everything that I could have wanted. With that, I am different from everyone. I am like Poe. I adore the show. It's been something I've been looking for. The sci-fi dystopian transhuman society. Very, very fun, very exciting bounds. So excited to be here.
All right.
Welcome back.
Yeah.
Welcome back, Ben. Ben first appeared on our Westworld podcast, so there is definitely a theme for Ben. Hey, I'm Kylie.
Hi, Kylie.
Oh, hey, Okay, you heard me talk already. And I started watching Altered Carbon because all the people in this room said, hey, can we do a podcast about Altered Carbon? Especially Spencer. That's why he's moderating it. And I was like, sure, what's that? And so I found the TV show and I watched it. I think Spencer loves it more than I do.
Probably.
Yeah, but I do enjoy it quite a bit. It's very intelligent. I feel like I'm going to have to rewatch it at some point because definitely in the first few episodes I was like, what is going on? I don't know, and I don't know if I'm engaged enough to piece it through. But as the series, this first season progressed, I was like, okay, I think I'm getting it, and it's cool. I like it. So to that end, I would be somewhere actually. I'm going to pick 2. I hope there's not a multiple judger in the room. Are you a multiple judger?
No, I'm not, because I'm usually a multiple.
There you go. So I'm going to be between Poe. I do adore it and feel compelled to be there for every moment, but also of Vernon because I don't always know what's going on, but I do find myself riveted and find a purpose in it.
All right, welcome Kylie, and I've already introduced myself. I'm Spencer. And
Hi, Spencer.
Hey, cool. And I would say that I'm a mixture of Tak and Poe. I really got into this show very quickly. It was something I just stumbled across on Netflix. I was looking for something to watch one day, and it was like the first ad when you turn on Netflix that starts playing a trailer. I saw that Joel, I'm going to butcher his last name, whatever it is, I won't say it, and James Purefoy were in it, and I've loved everything I've seen them both in, so I decided to watch it. The first episode for me was a little slow, but I liked the backstories that they were bringing, the confusion of the main character. It just had so many attractive things to me, so I got hooked pretty quickly, so it puts me in that kind of Poe-Tak box.
And the moderator seat.
I think that's a clue to keep this moving on.
Good job.
So
He's doing great, guys.
what we're going to do now is we're going to rate the show as far as on the CPU star scale. And the CPU star scale is 5 stars. I have to watch everything. Holy smokes. Kylie says that so much better, but, 4 stars. Well, it certainly seems intriguing, but I'm going to keep watching. But I do see possible pitfalls in the premise. 3 stars. I'll give it one more try. There are things I like and there's things I don't. We'll see which things are allowed to flourish. 2 stars. I only watched part of season 1. Chances are I'm mainly bored, but there's some intrigue or fascination that could hold me to it together and blah, blah, blah. 1 star. Oh dear God, pass on this one, guys. It's a snoozer. I think I fell asleep during the beginning credits. It's not my cup of tea. There's just too many options to waste time on this one. Who'd like to go first on that?
I'll go first.
Go, Selene.
Holy smokes, I have to watch everything.
You're welcome.
5 stars.
Yes. 5 stars.
Thank you.
I'm gonna give it, like
That's not
4
a number.
3/4 stars. Like, I know, I'm so sorry. I'm like so close to 5.
For first-time listeners, Kylie hates it when we fraction the star system, but we all do it all the time.
Quarters and thirds and whatever you do is not.
Whatever I do is correct.
I just can't like quite give it 5 stars because like I don't know. Then I feel like because I'm picky, and I feel like I gotta save my 5 stars for like. What if something better comes along?
You know you don't get like a finite number of 5 stars.
Correct.
You can actually 5-star more
You're
than
allowed
one
to have
show.
more.
Yes.
I think we just blew her mind and changed her world. Keep your stack together. Alright. Thanks, Kels. Ben?
I would give this one 5 stars. I was immediately hooked. I was ecstatic to watch it all the way through. It took me a little while just because of work and schedule and everything, but I enjoyed every moment of it. So I did not get a chance to rewatch it after the podcast was announced that it was going, so I did rewatch part of one of the episodes and I loved it just as much.
And it all came back to you, didn't it?
Especially when I read synopsises. And oh yes!
That's right.
Yeah, I would say, so my first watch, it was definitely 4 stars. I loved it. I loved the world building. I just wanted more. And then having read the book and then going back to the series again, 5 stars for sure. I'm very happy that the second time around I loved it even more. Yeah, 5
Excellent.
stars.
Well, I've only been through it once, so I'm actually in the 4 stars camp. I think I'm going to be slightly the negative Nelly, maybe a little.
Maybe. I mean, 4 stars isn't too negative, but I mean,
Yeah.
I could see, especially with the way it starts, a 4-star rating would work. For me, it was probably a 4.5 the first time I watched it, and then I rewatched it in preparation for tonight, and it it went up to a 5-star. The visual painting that the directors and cinematographers did with this is just, it really gives you that dystopian feel and that vast separation between the meths and the grounders, and there's just so many beautiful things done with it. And I guess that's kind of a cue to move on. Is there anything that you liked immediately within the first few minutes of the show that made you know you were going to have to watch all 10 episodes and even made you binge it quickly, or was it like it was for me, where it was a little slow to get into? While I liked the actors, I liked the characters, it took a little while for me to really feel hooked.
I'll answer that, because I agree the visual presentation is stunning. I don't know what kind of budget they have for this show, but...
Definitely
it
high.
must be. The visual effects are probably the thing that kept me riveted from moment one, because I was like, I don't know what's going on, but I think it's pretty, and I'm going to keep watching it. But from a storytelling aspect, the frustration that I had with this a little bit was that there is not a lot of world building when the first couple of episodes happen. You're piecing together, he's in and out of his different past, present, and future. You see all these different people. You don't know if they're real. You don't get the sense that there are several different levels to the world, some in the sky, some in the ground, until they start kind of weaving through the different characters' backdrops. Like Ortega, for example, I'm going to just put out right now that she is my least favorite character.
I can see that. She was probably the weakest actress of the group.
Yes, and for a while I was so annoyed by how angry she was when I was not told why she was so angry.
Right.
And it was starting to be like, okay, she's just making me anxious and I don't know if I care.
And I think that was partially by design. I think that the idea of putting you in that place at the start of the series is so that you could relate strongly to Tak. Not understanding where he is. You know, he's suddenly a couple of 100 years from the last time he's been conscious. And I think the design of the writers was to put you in his position. So the confusion that we all probably felt a little bit at the beginning of this show, I think is by design.
I think so too. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, because also he's on a completely different planet than he was before as well. So, like, not only is he...
New planet, new sleeve, new there's so many things going on.
Culture, future...
People seem to know him, he has no idea who they are.
Yeah, and then he also doesn't know who's real and who isn't real half the time as well. So I think that a lot of that it makes sense that a lot of that is by design. I really like action movies, and so I was immediately drawn in to that first action scene where everything's getting shot up, and I thought that was
one of the most attractive first scenes in a show I've seen, because immediately I was drawn to the character of Poe. There was just something very magnetic about him, something attractive, the way in which he's portrayed. You kind of relate to the idea of the real Edgar Allan Poe, but this character that just wants to serve and have everything perfect for you. So when these thugs come into the hotel to take Tak, who's wondering why the hell they're there to take him, and those machine guns suddenly spin out of the roof, it's just like, oh, I love this hotel. I want to stay at this hotel.
It's like, why does anyone not want to stay?
Yeah, why is this not full every night?
I love it when they describe the AI hotels as like a possessive girlfriend.
Yes.
I'm like, yes.
And then there's that whole sequence where Tak is thinking about what was said. He thought, someone had said to him that they're like possessive girlfriends, and then he starts to connect the dots, and he's, here's the machine gun starting to whirl, and he's like, oh, I see what's going to happen.
And he's pretty much the only one in the room that does, other than Poe, which makes it even better. But that was a really good opening action sequence for a brand new show.
I think so too. I also was very intrigued by the re-sleeving concept.
Yes. No one truly dies anymore, but if you want to sleeve yourself nicely, you have to be very, very wealthy, otherwise you kind of get whatever's left over.
Yeah, oh man, that scene when they're calling people up and when that little girl is in that old woman's body.
Girl.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, my daughter is 7, and that was just like, I think I cried the first time I watched that episode.
And they did a good job all the way through the season showing that.
Yeah. It was.
Beggars can't be choosers, so to speak.
Yes, it was continuous.
There was a little Demolition Man feeling to the very first time when they wake up, that similar feel that you got in the movie Demolition Man as they're brought back to consciousness, although with the re-sleeving instead to add to their level of confusion, which I kind of immediately associated with.
Yeah, I can see that as well. It's been a long time since I've seen Demolition Man.
I still try to program my Google Home so when I go in I can say illuminate, but it won't have it.
Why not?
Trademark sponsorship.
Yes, my bleep home.
My AI unit.
Yes. My NSA listening device.
I will say that Poe is my favorite.
Yeah, mine too.
I
by
love
far.
every scene in the hotel, and that was the thing that hooked me on the show. Okay, I'm in it for this hotel. I love this guy.
And I like that
I want to know more.
Became deeper and deeper as the show went on, and they gave him more and more dimension. That's one thing I thought the show did really well as well, was once we got past those first 2-3 episodes, the character development was beautiful. For all of
everyone.
them. Even Ortega, who, like you, at first I was like, God, who's this bitch that's annoying me?
Yeah, it makes so much more sense now, looking back on it, because in the beginning I was really frustrated with her character, but now you really understand. You're like, okay.
Yeah, which we'll get to as we kind of plot our way through this a little bit.
Even the villains, even Demi, the twin, and all of him, even the bad guys got really good dimensional backstories that really helped you get completely immersed in the show.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree.
Because it's really frustrating when you're watching a really good show and the only people who get backstories are your heroes. That's really frustrating when your villains and your villain sidekicks are always one-dimensional, but...
And that's one of the things I've said in a lot of these podcasts that I've been involved with, the superhero ones and everything. A show is only as good as its best villain.
Yeah.
If its villain sucks, the show doesn't have anywhere to really go. So if you get one-dimensional villains, it's kind of boring. So when you get a villain, like this has plenty of them, really, that have depth and purpose and storyline that is separate but joined into the main story, it just makes it far more interesting. You want to see what's going to happen next. You can't predict necessarily. And there were a lot of times in this show where I was surprised, which doesn't happen very often for me, because I've watched a lot of TV, and you can usually go, oh, well, I've seen that actor before, he's got a bigger part than they're telling you he does, etc. It'd be like all the police procedurals. So that was something else that was really good about this, was all of those characters were given story. It wasn't just to advance the main storyline.
I also feel like, too, in being thrown into this world, which it can be a little confusing at first because you're trying to figure out the class system and what's going on here. When you have characters that you care about, it gives you a connection to it. It grounds it in something that is real, and so even if at first you're a little confused about, okay, what's going on here, what's happening, I just feel like you can always connect if you've got full backstories. And
so we've said a lot about what we really liked early on. Was there anything that you didn't like? Was there anything that made you think, I'm not sure about this show? For me, there wasn't. I knew I was going to watch it all the way through, halfway through episode 1.
I mean, as we said, we watched the first episode, contacted Kylie, said, we're doing this podcast.
and then probably forgot about it for a second.
No, we kept looking at it and we're like, nah. Not yet.
It's probably good that you waited. It is a very dense show. There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, well, I had a lot of fun watching it a second time, and I got just as much out of it a second time as I did the first, which tells me the writers really put a lot of thought into things, which in today's TV market isn't always the way that goes. So in episode 1, which was called Out of the Past, we first meet Tuck, and as Kylie said, it's a little chaotic because he's bouncing all over the place. You've got different times when he was last truly alive, then how he became who he is, and then why he's pulled into the future. Did that confuse you a lot in the first episode, or were you able to make pretty good sense of it?
I already answered yes.
With that first scene, I think that confused me a little bit, just because of the timing of it. And then immediately after that, you're thrown into him getting re-sleeved again. Right. And so not knowing the premise, I was like, okay, are you different people? Are you the same people? Okay, so that confused me a little bit at first.
And so now with the hindsight, for me, it was like, okay, that's 250 years before where we're at now, but it still was very futuristic from today's timeline.
Yeah.
Some of it throughout the course of the show felt like that it maybe wasn't too far in the future from where we're at now. The confusion was there, but it wasn't enough to really throw me off. I kind of followed, obviously, the sleeving thing. I just didn't necessarily get the time jump straight away.
Well, I think what was kind of confusing is the fact that that the time difference is 250 years, but yet the future doesn't seem too future for him.
Where his mind is absolutely blown by the technology.
Like, it seemed like the technology and the basic system of everything seemed to be the same over 200
Yeah,
years.
it just become to the
I
extremes,
think
right?
that's kind of covered later on, where he talks about the purpose of the envoys was to stop people from being immortal and gaining all this power. And I think they pressured the system to basically stay the status quo rather than grow as a society, because they didn't want other people getting the same powers and resources and things as them. So their whole kind of ideology was not everyone should live forever because it will corrupt you and corrupt society. It'll cause it to stagnate, and we kind of see that between. I think honestly, when you look back when in his last view of the world before he gets killed, 250 years, I think that world looked better than the current world that they're living in. So.
There was green.
Yes. Well, I mean, not just that, but even when in the skyscraper he's looking out over the city, it looked like a almost nicer cityscape than they have in the
It
city
seemed
that he's
more
in.
lawful, but there was definitely a separation of wealth.
Yes.
And I kind of got the feeling that he felt like there was injustice in that. But he was definitely focused on the task at hand, so there was some of that going on.
I was going to say the thing that I picked up on pretty quickly, and I wanted them to answer more of, and maybe it's going to happen in coming seasons, is the idea that the whole re-sleeving technology came from aliens. And I wanted to know just how much of an effect, since apparently aliens landed on our planet and created this hallmark of this society, how have they affected other parts of the society? Was it humans that set up this class structure? Was it aliens who influenced this class structure? How integrated were the aliens in the society? Because that's something they didn't really touch on because we were exploring all the characters' pasts and timelines and stuff.
Part of, and I may be remembering this wrong, which worries me a little bit.
Or you're remembering it better than me, Spencer.
It seems to me that the leader of the envoys confessed later on to being the lead programmer of the sleeving system.
Yeah.
She actually created from the technology of the aliens the ability to sleeve.
Yeah.
So while they brought the technology to the planet that it came from, and the reason that she was gathering these envoys to correct it is because she didn't want it to be used in the way that she foresaw, which is where we end up when we...
Right. That didn't come out until the very
That comes out
last
right
episode.
at the end.
Right. And so I spent a lot of the time watching...
Waiting to see what that
waiting
story
to
was.
see what that was and trying to figure out just how complex this relationship with these other beings was. And maybe that's something that the trajectory that the show will take us on in future.
And in good news, season 2 has been announced and will be hitting Netflix next month.
Yes. So I hope that's something they revisit, but it was also, you know me, I tend to latch on to something like, this seems like an important story element.
Yeah, why aren't you telling me more about this?
So I was obsessing about that a lot.
And I could see that being fleshed out in future season or seasons as we get past this initial story that they were definitely looking to tell of Lawrence Bancroft. So then, we already kind of touched on this with Ortega being obsessed with Kovac. Was that good storytelling? Did you feel that was good storytelling at the time? Or did it become good storytelling when the penny gets dropped on us a bit later on?
I think it set us up to think it was like the trope, the typical trope of this is just the cop who's obsessed with justice, and in some ways she is, but there was additional reasons and more depth behind why she was so fascinated with Kovac and the envoy, a terrorist being dropped into her city and hired by Bancroft or bought out by Bancroft and everything. So it did throw a little bit more depth into why she was so interested in him and focused on him and wanting to see what he was doing. She was also worried about
Right.
the
Which,
body.
spoiler alert, is she used to be his partner and lover. So,
Well, the bodies.
The
the body,
body,
yes.
not
Not Kovac,
not
but the
Kovac
body
himself.
that Kovac is currently using.
Yeah, I agree with that. It felt a little tropey at first. Yeah.
Yeah, which kind of as Kylie alluded to earlier, her anger just seemed completely over the top and misplaced.
Yes.
Well, that's what I was responding to. I think the story pays her off in the end, thankfully,
Yeah.
and gives her a purpose, but they do spend an awful long time on that attitude that she's got.
Yeah.
And I'm like, where is this coming from? But I do think I actually wasn't offended by the progression of that story. I thought it did do well when they revealed what it was. And it was actually compelling by that time because you had gone on the journey with Tak for a while, so you already sympathize with him, and then she creates this bombshell, and all of a sudden, I think a lot of that ice melts between those two characters very quickly.
Yeah.
And they become allies very quickly, and it felt organic.
Yeah, it did.
To me.
I would agree with that. So then after the whole Ortega's a time bomb for no reason thing, we move on to the banquet at the Bancrofts. And this is the first time we truly get to see the true separation between the ground and the Meths, who live above the clouds in these luxurious towers with
Do we know why
absolutely...
they're called Meths?
I was just going to say that.
Methuselah from like the Bible. He lived for like 960 years
Did they
or something.
say that?
She says a
says
quote. She says a quote
Yeah,
about it.
there's a quote
Like
in
they
there.
used the full Methuselah name at one point.
She says a quote from the Bible on it in the first episode when she's dropping him off.
Yeah, when she drops him off.
Yeah.
When Ortega drops him off?
Mhm.
Oh.
When she's the driver
Yeah, I did
dropping him
not
off.
register that.
When she slams
I
the
know,
car
I
into
watched
the
it
garden
twice.
on purpose. So there's quite a bit to unpack in that episode. We get to see, obviously, the lifestyle, how they feel they can do anything. In fact, they even start referring to themselves as gods. We see the Ghost Walker for the first time, which is an interesting character unto itself. Or I think I called him the Silent Assassin or the Invisible Assassin, but I believe they actually called him the Ghost Walker in the show. How did that episode make you feel as far as seeing that separation? Because I think we're starting to see some of that in our own society now, and it could very easily, in 1,000 years, be what we see on the screen. So did you?
That's crazy.
It is, but I mean, the rich get richer, the poor get poorer, and the middle class disappears, and that's everything that happens in this show.
Yeah.
Did it elicit any real world feelings in anybody?
I think,
Yeah,
I mean, it was unsettling to see exactly how different they were, but I would honestly have to say that I don't think it was actually like Raylene's first appearance in that one Meth's sleeve, where she's talking about putting the mind of somebody in that
In the snake.
that I truly was reviled by
Yeah.
the Meths.
I was
Like, up until
exactly the
then, I
same.
was like,
Oh, you
this
lucky
bothers me.
bastards. Yeah.
Like, it bothers me, but at that point, I was really, like, turned off and reviled.
Yeah, that was the
And-
moment where you realize they can do whatever they want because they have all the power.
Yeah.
they do.
And then it was also really interesting because I think that's the first time you really get a chance to like see into Lawrence's family dynamics, and like that's the first time they truly like talk about Isaac and his like the fact that he's forced to live in that body that looks like he's 18 maybe,
Yeah.
if even, and that he's been that way for hundreds of years,
Yeah.
and it's just like, oh, I mean, I already didn't like Bancroft. He was a dick to begin with.
Super,
Suddenly
super
now you're just
controlling.
like, you're like, really? Like, you hate your
I
kids
don't
that
like
much?
his wife either.
Well, I don't like her either, but
Miriam.
Miriam.
I do not like her.
Miriam, who is just really slutty.
Well, so when I was taking notes for this show, I said, Mrs. Bancroft enters nipples first.
Yes, she had
Thank you
no
for saying
qualms.
it because I already brought up the strippers and I
She certainly had no qualms about letting everybody know that she had quite a nice body.
For sure.
And she duplicated it several times.
Yes, and
and
Then-
has a whole island of herself,
yes.
Apparently.
which we find out later.
no, okay, that was one thing that was confusing me because she was talking about how she like let like multiple of them roam at the same time. Like she's not like double sleeving, so I'm confused
Yeah,
on
there
how
was a little
that
confusion
works.
with that. Like whether they
Yeah.
just kind of roam as mindless bodies. I don't know. It was kind of just a passing
They
comment.
didn't
whether,
really go into.
I'm wondering whether that was just her trying to see if she could influence Tak and not really a reality.
Or if she lets other people's sleeve in her sleeve, like
I-
go into her sleeve.
I got the sense that was the case because wasn't there
Several times it seems like she'd let anyone go in her sleeve, but
Yeah.
I don't
Whoa.
Yeah, but one time it's
There
her
was-
daughter.
Yeah, one
Yeah,
time it turned out to be
yeah,
her
it was her
daughter
daughter.
using her sleeve.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
or when one
That was at
sleeve
the party.
was mixed
Yeah, that
up
was
with
at
the
the
other
party.
sleeve and they were the same thing.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. This brings new level to the word ego and narcissist, but okay.
Right, and there definitely is with all of the meths. It's very egocentric.
Such thing as like egophilia.
There is
We have
now.
coined it now. TM Kels.
I mean, quite literally, these people can go themselves. It's,
Yeah.
In that party episode, was there anything else anybody really took from that episode that shocked them or was enlightening as to where the story might be going?
Not shocking or enlightening, but I love that he's still using that backpack.
Yes!
That was
Oh
my
my
favorite
gosh.
thing. That backpack made my life. I was like, I love that he's still using that.
Yeah, that backpack stayed with him throughout the entire show, and I thought it was just a
It was
really
perfectly
cool moment.
adorable.
Yeah.
I do also, like, backtracking to the first episode, enjoy that he was like, I have 24 hours in this sleeve to do whatever I want. I'm going to buy a backpack full of drugs.
And there's very definitely a service for that on the ground. You can get anything you want if you've got the credits to do so. We saw that with weapons, we saw that with drugs, sex, anything you want if you can afford it. And it
Medical
seems like-
treatment.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, but it felt like that was part of the way that the meths control the groundlings, is
Yeah.
to give them this seediness that they can get a taste of some sort of happiness in, but not get beyond that.
Which is interesting because I thought that helped give a little bit of depth to Ortega coming from such a religious family where they won't where they're all coded so that they can't be
They
spun
can't be
back up.
re-sleeved
And
or
I
spun
think
back
a
up.
lot of her anger came from that, having that in the family and having like her believing that it's okay to do that and that they should do that to help bring murderers to justice
and
and
that
her
was
own
kind
family.
of where her belief came from, wasn't it? Was that they could be spun back up to testify against the person that killed them, but because of the religious coding, they couldn't be. We learn later on that that's by design from the meths, so that they can get away with killing people.
Well,
Yeah.
used by the meths to get
Used
away
by-
with
yeah.
killing them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although I think this is one of the redeeming qualities I found in her character. I almost got the sense that she struggled even still. Like, I don't know that she was as firm in the belief that it was okay to restack. I think she gave a lot of consideration to where her family's position was and kind of wrestled with it. Because that was interesting to me. I was like, well, that's a new dimension on this story, and I hope they keep going with that.
Well, one of the best parts was when she put her grandma in the.
Yeah.
Love
that
that.
was just
Yeah.
so much fun watching this big tattooed beast of a man
Yes.
play a grandmother.
I was so confused when he first walked up to her and was like, oh no, that's the wrong cheese. And I was like, why are you taking advice from this random person? And then to find out that that's her grandma, and I thought that actor did amazing switching from her grandma to the character he played before to the Demi.
Demi, yeah.
I just thought that actor was amazing.
Yeah, he did a
Yeah.
great job, and the scene in Ortega's place with the kids, and just she doesn't care anymore, and she's embracing the fact that she's in this awful sleeve just so she can spend time with her family. And kind of put them in the mindset of, look, this isn't as bad as you think it is. We should all get a shot. And then she wants drugs and all kinds
Yes,
of stuff.
I
I want to do
love
everything
that.
I've never done before.
And then asks not to come back.
Yeah,
that-
and then she
yeah.
said, okay, I got my final role. That's good. I did the things I wanted to do. I said goodbye to the people I wanted to say goodbye to while I was healthy, while I was able to, which I thought was a really sweet moment. Because I can see that. I can see the idea of if you had the opportunity to come back, you would. But would you want to come back permanently? I don't think I'd want to be a meth.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind having some of their money, but I don't want to. I wouldn't mind living like them, but I wouldn't want to live like them forever, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's definitely something this show is going to explore in the future, because I think, is there a limit to this sense of immortality they created? And is that a limit that you create, that your resources create? Or is it right? Is there a God out there that says this is okay? I mean, that stuff, by the time they were talking about that stuff, I was like, okay, I love this show now.
Yeah.
So
And
I can't wait.
The fact that the meths are all constantly working hard to accumulate more wealth all the time tells you that if you run out of wealth, you run out of the ability to stay living. So it's directly tied to your financial status as to whether you can keep going or not, which I found truly intriguing.
Yeah.
So they can't just rest on their laurels. They have to keep going after more and more money all the time. One of the first shocks was when we find out that the police captain is very corrupt. Completely on Bancroft's
And that actor
payroll.
has been in a lot of classic great TV.
Yes, I've seen him
like
a lot of
the
times.
X-Files.
The character's name was Tanaka.
Yes.
I think that was his name on the X-Files.
I couldn't remember what show it was, but I was like,
It was
I feel
the
like
one
this name
where-
has been used
It was
before
the
with you.
spores. He had the thing grow out of his throat on the X-Files. It was awesome. I really like the X-Files.
I think that was around the time in this season where all the surprises started popping.
Yeah.
From about episode 6 onwards. So we got a lot of that there, finding out that he was corrupt, finding out that the Bancroft's lawyer actually was pulled up from the streets and she had aspirations beyond
was
her
on
station.
Bones.
Yeah, she was.
Yeah, I remembered her from something. Thank you for filling in where it was, because I'd forgotten exactly, but I knew I'd seen her in something before. So we got a lot of those surprises coming out in episode 6, but then they took a step back and threw us back to where Tak's childhood and what created him and his suddenly find out he has a sister. And then we see
Dyken Lockman.
their training as envoys, which I found that to be a really interesting episode. A lot of the time, flashbacks, when they use them as a device, let's say Arrow, gets really monotonous.
It's not fair to compare these two.
No, well, I'm saying a lot of the time
I
it
know.
gets monotonous like it did with Arrow because they just overly used it. And I thought this was very clever because it suddenly gave us a much deeper backstory on our main character, and it showed you why he had the skill set and that he was a very conflicted character, you know, how he'd been taken as a boy and pushed into this military role because they saw the promise in him, but he got pulled out by his sister, which was the first time we found out he actually had a sister, and then we get to see them training together. But he's always very committed to the tasks at hand. In everything that we see him throughout this entire show, whether it's working for Bancroft, he is very focused on solving that problem. When he was the elite guards, he was very focused on doing what he was supposed to do as an elite guard. When he was found by his sister, he instantly very focused on reuniting and protecting his sister, which was the first thing we saw of him when they're hiding in the cupboard. And then you get introduced to him with the envoys, and again, instant focus. It's a really interesting character trait that he had this divine focus. What did you all feel on that?
I thought it was very interesting how the very first time he and Raylene see each other again, they're instantly fighting so well together, which is awesome.
Yeah, it was a little confusing
like-
at first because it's like, well, wait, how do they... But then when you get the envoy backstory, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, they've been trained that highly.
Well, I mean, even the first time they meet as, like, adults,
in
the past,
Oh,
when
yeah, when
she's
they're
with the
fighting the
Yakuza.
Yeah.
Which also, the fact that the Yakuza get all the way to some foreign planet and still exist that far in the future is just a
obviously
great
they do.
testament
Yeah.
to I don't know what. I'm not saying that I support
Tenacity?
them. Yeah, we'll go with that.
The crime syndicates will live on forever because
Yeah.
there's money in crime.
Yes. I loved it. I loved how great they are at fighting together. It was a little unbelievable because I was like, you guys haven't seen each other since you were kids. But whatever. They were awesome together.
I think it was trying to show you that they'd both gone in a separate direction, but each of their directions was to highly train them in something that they would be useful for as a tool for somebody else.
Yeah.
But then them coming together showed you that
I think
together they're stronger and bigger than that.
Yeah. I think it was also supposed to show you, like, that there was some sort of connection that they have.
That family bond that couldn't be broken
Yeah. something
because of
like
what
that.
they'd been through.
Yeah.
I loved their story. I loved that story and all their action scenes. and their final climactic fight, which I know we're building toward.
Yeah, we'll get to that part.
Yeah.
That
was awesome.
The first time I watched this show, their relationship was actually the thing that I didn't connect to at first because I didn't feel
It didn't
strong.
feel as organic, did it?
It didn't feel as organic, and watching it the second time, Takeshi has a vision of her in the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
Which at the time, you don't really know. Maybe they mention brother and sister or something, but it could be in any context, you know, you're not really sure. But watching it the second time and kind of like connecting that first vision, it made the relationship feel stronger to me. And it could be because, like, I have a really strong brother and sister relationship, so I'm kind of picky about how those are portrayed. But going forward, watching the show, it was a lot more compelling, and I had a lot more emotional interest in it towards the end, and I felt a lot more connected this time around.
What I thought was very interesting in their relationship is the fact that even though they both are very, like, talking about Takeshi's, like, hyper-focus, like, the second he's focusing on something, he's doing it outright, very forward about it. There's no real stealth to him in that way, and Raylene is all stealth. At no point does she ever really tell you, this is what I want. She, like, even when they're with the envoys, she's like, well, I'm here for you, brother, but I'm really not about this. And then she goes, this entire time, she doesn't say anything to him up front, like, no, I really disagree with this, I'm leaving. She's like, okay, I'll put up with this until I can find a way to subvert it. And I think that's a really interesting character trait that she has that we see throughout the entire thing. She's become this meth and done all of these things because she's very good at subversion and just being like, look here, but I'm actually here.
Yeah. So you don't really see that with her, like you said, when all the training's going on, except in some of her body language. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of subtlety to her character most of the way through. And you don't realise she's a meth until after things start to fall apart and you find out that she's actually orchestrating a lot of this.
Mm-hmm. Which I want to praise Dyken Lackman now too. She was on Dollhouse and Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and The 100 and was fantastic in all of those 3 shows. You should have persisted with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That's a whole other thing.
I liked her in Dollhouse. Dollhouse was a short-lived, wonderful show.
Yes. Agreed. And that's why I connected to them, because I like her so much. And I noticed she has this quality she brings to a lot of her characters. She can turn that facial expression just so slightly where you're like, this is
there's something
unsettling.
going on.
There's something behind that. And
there's more to her than meets the eye.
You can't put your finger on it, and then they tease it out in this show very slowly, and you're like...
So when you go back and watch it a second time, and you realise the number of times that she's actually there but in a different sleeve, and you see that character interacting, you pick up on a lot of those subtleties, and it's really quite wonderful. Now, I guess we can talk a little bit about, in this show, a lot of the time, there was a lot of naked people.
Oh, yeah.
Mostly women.
Once or twice.
Once or twice. Yeah. The biggest one was...
the panel seems okay with that.
I'm not necessarily objecting. But didn't that sometimes feel a little overplayed, the very common Hollywood, let's get the hot girl naked?
Only in the sense of the wife, because I just felt like for a long time...
She used it as a toy.
Yeah, and I felt she was very superfluous. Like, why do I give a shit about her other than the fact that she's naked all the time?
Well, okay, also the scene where Ray and Ortega were fighting.
In Ray's vault.
And Ray's vault, where Ortega
look, there's
was
naked
just
Ray
killing,
again, just from a better angle.
Yeah, just like thousands of naked Rays. I literally was laughing out loud through that whole scene. I was like, this is comic.
Is it just me that rewound it like 3 times?
No, because there were duplicates. Why? Spencer.
Like I said, different angles.
Angles, Kylie, angles. But it just got to be a little comic.
It did.
I was like,
it got to be comedic, a little over the top, which I thought several times that the nudity, while not displeasing to the eye, was unnecessary.
Well, I mean, yes, I think it was there to kind of point you into realizing exactly like how
symbolic of the excess, maybe.
Yes, like symbolic of the excess, but also kind of the way that a lot of that world was being used. Because he's not in the home family situation ever. Like, I mean, there's not nudity in the everyday, and a lot of the seedy places that he's going to literally jack it off.
What a great name for a place like that, right?
Like,
I wonder what you do here.
There was some equal opportunity full frontal too, because
No,
I
that's-
remember saying out loud, "Oh, good, there's equal opportunity."
And then Kylie
Was that your nickname for it, or is that a euphemism?
A euphemism? No.
Oh, look, it's equal opportunity.
I just think of all the controversy over Game of Thrones, so you have to count the number of penises versus the number of vaginas.
They did show some vaginas, I guess.
Yeah, I think,
A little bit.
I think too,
mostly
like,
boobs.
there might be, in this world, there might be a different relationship to the naked body anyway, because it's sleeves, you know? They're not even referring to themselves as bodies. They're
Here was
just
my
referring
thing
to
with that,
themselves
though.
as
It's not like
sleeves.
they were frozen, like Raylene's character. It's not like she was frozen in goop in a sack like
Sure.
Tack's body was. These people are all basically in fridges. So there's no reason they couldn't have been clothed. It was purely from...
It's cold in there.
Sure.
Yeah, really. You should probably have a sweater on, man. I can tell you're cold.
I think what pushed it a little over the top is pairing it with such graphic violence.
Mm-hmm.
For me, especially like in that scene with Ortega and Ray, you know, again, like I don't have a problem with violent shows. You know, I loved Altered Carbon, but it was just something that, like, those two things paired together, it was a little much.
It's like, madam, you're going to hurt yourself. You've got
Yeah.
so you had some problems with the virtual torture scene then.
Yeah, that was
Yes.
where I was going
That was
next.
very hard to watch.
Yes.
I found that it was hard to watch, but boy, what a brilliant piece of storytelling that was.
For sure.
And especially when you showed it from an envoy's perspective, where they know they are, but they're still feeling the pain and having to psychologically fight against what they know is going on. I found that to be just incredible, especially when it came to Ortega later on.
Well, that, and then when you realize that Lizzie went through all of that, and that she absolutely has no, like, I'm going to
Lizzie's the
assume...
No
daughter.
defense.
Yes, like,
Yeah.
no
I
defense
think
against that,
she's
no
on
training.
Riverdale. I'm not sure though.
Maybe.
She's one of the Pussycats.
Talking of Lizzie, that whole family with Vernon, Lizzie, and then the guy that shows up later on that ends up being the wife, which
Ava,
Ava was, what a wonderful piece of acting by him. To
Yes.
play it with
so
such
good.
feminine quality, but still physically have that appearance. And the fact that Vernon, after a short period, accepted it so readily, and you know, they went and had a nice dinner together, and it kind of life resumed as normal. There was an acceptance to it.
Yeah.
I thought that was really clever.
I loved that moment when Ava in that sleeve went in to visit Lizzie, and Lizzie like immediately recognized her.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
her
love
mom.
that.
I loved that. That was, I don't know, it was just a really cool moment. But yeah, I'm also wondering if like the amount of nudity paired with violence is just supposed to help. I think it's supposed to be unsettling. I think it's supposed to add to the feeling of like dystopia and debauchery and just like
Depravity.
The fact that if you have money, the body is disposable.
I think
It's
it's
like a
supposed
Gucci
to be I think it's supposed
Well, and
to.
also just the harshness of the ground life, and I mean, I do think.
Well,
That's
yeah,
a
but
really-
then even, you know,
The cloud.
the clouds,
Head in the clouds.
head in the
Yeah.
clouds. I can't even believe that place existed.
Unveiling of that was so well done.
Yeah.
I think. Like, I mean, you knew it was going to be something
Yeah, because
awful
I think
like
the
that.
first time you
but,
see it was when Kovacs looks through Bancroft's telescope
well,
and
I mean,
sees this place up in...
But when you see
don't know what it
in
is.
that
Yeah, you know what it
episode
is, yeah.
when you see what was her
Elliot.
name, Mary. What was the girl's name that died?
Lizzie?
Lizzie.
No.
No,
no,
Mary
no.
Lou Henchy.
It was
Mary Lou. Yeah, Mary
Which-
Lou. When you see her fall,
her body fall into the water.
like you just know. Like I just knew. I was like that something
That's a bad
something
place.
bad happened there. Like she fell from somewhere bad.
Yeah, except with
Yeah.
the kid and the father in the fishing boat.
Yeah.
Suddenly
Yeah.
there's this big splash.
Yeah.
That I think was one of the most. It's not quite frustrating, but like that entire thing, like you start that show off with her body falling and trying to figure out the entire time, like, why is this body important? Why
And
do
they
you
keep
keep
talking
showing
about
me
it
this
too.
body?
Yes. Yeah.
And that like literally the payoff of that at the end, which this entire time you're expecting it to be more, but it's not. It's such a simple, small little piece, but yet it's such an important piece.
Yeah, it's like it's like when you have a jigsaw puzzle and you're missing that one piece, and that was the gloss on the story at the end.
Yeah, I agree with Kels. I think that the only time any of this seemed gratuitous was the wife for me. Because I think it is the world. And also I watch a lot of HBO, so I wasn't shocked.
Yeah, I think with the wife, her character is so incredibly bored of still being alive that she is just playing anytime with anyone that she can. Just to keep any sort of spark of interest in being around anymore.
I know, I just didn't sympathize with that.
Oh no, I don't.
No.
I don't think you're, and honestly, I don't
That's
think
how
you're
her
supposed
character
to.
in the book is too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's her first name, Miriam?
Miriam.
Yeah, Miriam Bancroft, and she, if anything, she's actually, I would say, worse than her husband, than Lawrence. I think that she has allowed him to control, but she manipulates for fun. Him as well as everybody else.
Yeah. Well, and I think if you're that bored, then at that point, stop paying to be alive. Like, just...
Unless that
But
was
Lawrence
part
won't
of his
let
control,
let her go.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I thought it was very satisfying to see them both get pulled in at the end, arrested, and for them to acknowledge that they have corrupted each other and that they have...
For him to actually realize with the, what have we done to each other?
Yeah.
Although even then, it's still very self-centered and selfish. It's like, well, what have we done to each other?
Not to anybody else, or what
all
we've
the
done.
orbits around them that they... Because it seems like he's meth prime.
Yeah.
Like, he is the meth of meths.
Yeah.
And Raylene wants to be the meth of meths. So the whole thing with Head in the Clouds is controlling these people.
And playing with them. And
getting things on them that they wouldn't want other people to know, etc.
Yeah.
Just there's an interest that no matter how much money you have, somebody's always after controlling you, which that in itself is something that even happens today.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So Head in the Clouds, we've talked about it being this place of debauchery where men of wealth, it seemed like it was mostly men that they expected up
I
there,
mean, they didn't show
could
any...
do anything they want.
Yeah, literally.
Literally
Snuff
anything
film
they want.
Only
It-
live.
That made me sick, that scene with Vernon. He's walking Vernon around. What do you need? Do you need a man? Do you need a child? And as soon as he said that,
when he said a
was
child,
just
I was like, oh, please, kill him. Kill the guy that offered you a child.
Get out.
Do it now.
Get out.
And all of those people did get killed, which was very satisfying.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, even going back to the party when they bring in that married couple to fight each other
Yeah.
to the death.
Yep.
And
So
the
that they
married
can-
couple has children.
So the different sleeves keep coming home to these children all the time.
And they're like, oh, yeah, our children are used to
Yeah,
it.
they
And
see
they're
it-
like,
they see it
how
at
old
least
are
once a
your
week.
children?
Yeah, it's like 4 and 6 or
4
something.
and 6, and
And they're like, they're not okay.
Like-
So the lengths that grounders will go to try and get a leg up was, again, we've got that massive divide with no middle. So these people that are desperate are always trying to find new ways to get a little closer to the clouds.
Which honestly is becoming super relevant, I think.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. We see it every day.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of what made this show so compelling for me is that I could extrapolate the data and see our future in it a little bit. Yeah. Maybe not necessarily the technology, but then again, who knows?
I was kind of thinking about that in terms of, like, if we do have AI hotels, like, at that point we are going to be subject to our AI overlords. So, like, I don't know that we will really be around for stacks. Like, if the technology is that great, I don't know that we're in charge anymore.
That was one of the interesting things as well, is when the AIs were playing cards with each other.
Yeah.
And the guy who owned Jack, or the AI that owned Jacket off, really hated or sleeves, as he called them.
Yeah.
That was really interesting seeing the way that they all discussed, and then also the way that they treated Poe, because he seemed like the good AI and they were the kind of dark and twisted AIs.
I had a smidge of Matrix vibes at that point, because I was like, this is just the Matrix with faces.
Yeah.
Yep.
I wouldn't have been surprised to see Smith show up at the card game.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
He would fit right in.
So then they come up with this plan, and they go up to Head of the Clouds to take Raylene down to stop her being able to re-sleeve. Did you think the plan was pretty clever, or did you always suspect that they would kind of get caught and put in a really crappy position?
Well,
The second one.
Yeah.
I figured they
It was inevitable, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You kind of needed that conflict anyway, which
But I thought it was very interesting and I really enjoyed that plan. Like, seeing the little bits of it throughout, like, those 2 episodes, and the Rawlings virus and how they took out the terrible one AI. And I thought it was I really enjoyed that plan. I really liked it. The concept, I thought, was really cool.
And this was the episode where we lost Poe.
Yes.
That was so sad to me because I
sad.
enjoyed the character so much. And to see him slowly being physically dissolved was painful to watch.
Well, especially that last conversation he had with Lizzie.
Yeah.
You know, it was seeing him be like, you have to go. And she's like, no, send me up. I'm ready to do my job. And having her, like, convince him that you haven't turned me into a monster, and him being so concerned about that. And his last job being like, all right, I will send you what is possibly your death. I am so sorry.
Yeah, he felt like the deepest character in a lot of ways to me.
Yes.
And he's definitely had some of the best development of any of the characters in the show. And ended up being the linchpin in many ways because he rehabilitated Lizzie, who, spoiler alert, ends up saving everybody.
Yeah.
Kicking ass.
And being super badass.
Yes. Yeah.
Look
at her parkour off that wall.
Yeah, well, it's when she walks into the room and that guy is getting ready to, I think, kill the couple in the room.
Oh, he's already killed them.
Or he's killed them, and he's getting dressed, and she walks in. He's like, oh, well, is this free? Is this not? And then she just kills him. Boom. It was.
Yeah.
Oh, Lizzie's a badass. That was fun to watch.
Yeah.
Yes. That whole sequence was badass.
Well, yeah, her killing the creepy guard who licked her face, and
Yeah.
there was that guard. The first time you saw him, and he was feeling up the sleeves and stuff. You always want the bad people to meet a horrible end, and she certainly provided one, which was really satisfying.
Yes.
So we also get then Tack shutting himself in with Raylene and kind of ending what she wanted was for them to be together forever, and he realizes that she can't be let to be around forever.
Well, I would care to say that he almost gives her what she wants, and that he kills her, but his plan is to die with her. His plan is to let them be together in the next world, if that's a thing, and if not, then to let them both be in death together.
But in part, he knows that's not going to happen because he's double-sleeved.
Well, yeah, but his consciousness is gone from that part.
From where the two separated, yes, but...
Fair point. Actually, I have nothing to say against that.
Because later on, when he does actually survive, although he wasn't planning on it, they then have that discussion and the Rochambeau to decide which one of them gets to go on.
Yeah.
Which was also another kind of a poignant ending. And that was a surprise when he double-sleeved.
I did not see that coming.
I didn't see it coming at all.
I love that.
Because they talked about how it could be very dangerous, all of that, and it was suddenly a big like, oh wow, what? Hold on, wait, did that just happen moment?
That, and then the entire debate over, so which one of us is gonna go kill my sister and which one of us is gonna go have sex?
Yeah. And so I decided I'd let him go have sex because he hasn't yet.
Yeah.
There were lots of cute moments. There was a good injection of comedy throughout as well, things to make you laugh, which I think a lot of these dystopian shows and movies make the mistake of not really giving you any comedy and just being about the darkness that comes after whatever cataclysmic event leads us there.
Yeah.
So I appreciated that in the writing as well, giving us moments to chuckle at and smile at.
A lot of it was dry, though.
Yeah.
Very
Oh
dry.
yeah. There's nothing wrong with dry humor.
And I think,
The British have been known for it for a long time.
I know, that's why you like it so much.
That's true.
the character of Poe, too, is such, lighthearted.
Yeah.
So it's so endearing. It's this light spot in this horrible, dark world.
Absolutely. So who were your favorite characters and why?
Tack and Poe, because I liked their interchanges. I thought Tack, he's a very charismatic, interesting main character. And whatever his name is that plays him.
Joel Kinnaman.
Kinnaman,
that's
that's
it.
right.
I want to say Hinneman, but I knew it was wrong.
First of all, I find him attractive. Second of all, I think he does a very good job.
He was very good in another Netflix original, The Killing.
I haven't watched it.
It's a retelling of a Swedish or Norwegian murder mystery. Very, very good show. I think it's 2 or 3 seasons of that. But
And close
that's where
in
I
the-
first saw him.
Close second is, what's her name that made the stacks?
Kel.
Kel, yeah, very interesting character.
I want to know more about her.
Agreed.
And, the way they left it, he kind of goes off to search for her because he
Yeah.
finds out that she's still out there somewhere.
Well, I want to know if she's really telling the truth, because that could have been a really great ploy if she was lying.
Could have been.
Sure.
But
I get the sense that she's sincere there, though.
I do too, because she survived the ship being blown up.
Yeah, but I don't understand how you can needle cast somebody who's not knowing. I guess I don't know how you needle cast at all. So I guess it is possible she needle casted her. I just don't understand how that would
I'm
work.
not sure the tech involved in that, but I feel like the people that came after them would have wanted to capture her essence so that they could question and find out and learn more. It's part of the story we definitely haven't been told yet.
Yeah. Well, I just don't understand also how she wouldn't have been able to needle cast Tak then. Because if she could needle cast Kel, then they could have needle casted Tak, and then it wouldn't have mattered if he'd have died.
Depends on
there was a distinct
I don't know
thing.
that she actually controlled that. She made an agreement with the
the protectorate.
Protectorate. So she may not have been able to. She had no real power at that point, other than getting herself out of something that she didn't want to be in.
That's fair.
And knowing Tak the way that she does, she knows his laser focus. So maybe she wouldn't have fought for it too hard. Just that maybe he would get to be safe or whatever was her agreement. I don't know about that part. But those are interesting characters. What about everybody else? For me, hands down, it was Poe. My favourite character throughout the whole show. That's why his death affected me. I mean, it made me sad, really sad.
I cried a little.
I also really loved Ava. Her, just everything about her character, just instantly, I liked her. And there was never a point where I didn't like her. There was never any moment where she just rubbed me the wrong way, like so many of the other characters did, at least at some point.
Yeah, they all had little moments here that we were like, oh, you prick. But yeah, she was very endearing.
Yeah. So, Tak and Poe and also Ava.
I think for me, Tak, I love that character. I think that's why I love that show, and I really love Joel Kinnaman in that role. I just think that he's so good. I think that he brings that toughness, and he just, I really like the way that he portrayed it.
He's tough but sensitive.
And I like Kel because she was his hope.
Yeah.
And she was the thing that kept him
The
going.
light that kind of burned inside him.
Yeah, and that was as laser focused as a character as he was. That was kind of his driving force for everything. That's the reason why he didn't blow his stack out in the first episode. That's what kept him going through. And in thinking about Kel and her mission, I was wondering at the end of the show, would she want to be even brought back? Because she wasn't really about people living forever.
See, if her stack was recovered, though, she doesn't necessarily get the choice unless her stack is coded to not be able to be respun up. Same as with Tak, he didn't have the choice to be respun, he was just respun. So if her stack survived, she could be respun.
But if she comes back, is she going to be mad about that?
Oh, I'm sure she
No, she might not be, just because her whole mission was to stop the society that it was, and she never got to do that. So she might see it as a second chance to actually put an end to it and put into place her virus that was going to basically degrade cortical stacks, so they're only good for 100 years.
Yeah.
It depends. I mean, it depends on what's happened to her in the time between her death and then. I mean, we briefly touched on the digital torture. I mean, she's been in someone's hands for that long.
Yeah.
Rylene's hands. I mean, she had no qualms with torturing people or anything, so...
Oh, she started it.
Yeah.
Well, didn't start it, but owned that one company.
Seeing Ortega kill the... Lose. Yeah.
Oh,
that was very satisfying. After he'd killed her whole family.
That was a hard scene.
That
That was a hard scene to watch,
really
especially
hard.
when they came back in and you saw the kids' feet behind the couch.
Yeah.
I'm really glad they did not show that
Yeah.
death.
Yeah.
It's that's
was a
the
little
best
bit
you
different.
could have done.
I thought we were going to see all of it.
Yeah,
I did
really
too.
did.
Yeah, when he's standing
And
in
then-
the doorway watching the kids playing the games.
I don't know if I'm supposed to like her or not, but I was kind of satisfied when the lawyer lost her.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
well, because
it's
she
like,
seemed
I
like
don't
she
like-
would do anything.
Yeah,
She
she's
was a
kind
lawyer.
of the Slytherin wannabe.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think she's what every meth was at one point or another, and I don't know that anyone becoming a meth is a good thing,
Lie, cheat,
especially
and steal
someone
to
the
get
way
there.
she was doing it. I
that's
think
what
there
she
would be a way to
wanted, right?
become. Yeah, she
Yeah.
really wanted to just be
Yeah.
one of them, and she was just a snake.
And
She was
the
a Death
fact
Eater,
that
let's
she...
just put it
Well,
there.
I think what bothered me most about her is that she would do anything to the groundlings which she was one of.
Yeah.
Yes.
So she had no respect at all for where she even was trying to get out of.
Yeah.
It was like, I will squash all of you to get out of here. And the way she would always treat Takashi, oh not Takashi, the police captain, Tanaka, the way she always treated him showed that very well.
I also really liked, I don't remember his name, was it Samir?
Her partner.
Ortega's partner.
Oh.
Yes.
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 I really liked him in the way that he was such a good glue to her. Like, he really kind of kept her grounded and kept her from going crazy. And then when she did do crazy, stupid things, he was still like, all right, let's try to fix your major
Hey, look,
blow
I've
up.
adjusted the points. Let's get back on track here.
Right, like,
Yeah.
I really did enjoy his character and his death, really, especially
Very
when
brutal.
he literally died saving her.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
oh, that was so heart-wrenching. I also really loved the fluidity of languages in this show.
Yeah.
And the fact, I'm really curious if it was like a translation thing that they all had, since they all had like Onis, like if their Oni was translating
Yeah, they had a
them
Babel
to each
fish.
other when they were able, or, yeah, yes, amen.
Hey, I'm a hitchhiker's nut.
And we watch all of our stuff with subtitles on. It was really interesting because they almost always automatically tell you what they're saying in another language, but every once in a while Ortega would say something and they'd be like, swears in Spanish.
They wouldn't say swears, they'd say mutters in Spanish.
Oh, yeah.
And then I'd be like, oh, that was a swear word. And she was swearing.
But they would like tell you what other swear. But yeah, usually like at one point it was punta, and I was like, please, like that's not that bad. Like I know what that one means.
And most of the time, they would give you language and you could understand what was being
Yeah.
said, but there were the occasional scenes where you're like, wait, what did they say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as far as we've talked about what we really liked, was there anything that you felt was poorly executed or unnecessary or really weak in the season? I really can't think of anything.
No, because even despite, I mean, I picked my characters deliberately based on how you worded them. But even though I was confused and frustrated at first, I felt that everything eventually paid off. Like when people were, I was telling people I was watching the show, I might have said this to Julianne. I was like, I don't know if I like it right now in the first half. But once I hit like episode 5, I was like, no, I like it. It's great.
Yeah, it all starts to tie together, doesn't
Yeah.
it? It's almost like a Guy Ritchie movie where you've got all these different directions that come together in a crossroads. I'm referencing Snatch.
Are you?
Which is a brilliant movie. So, I mean, do you feel like the show overall was very well executed?
Yeah.
I think so. I think for me, like I was saying, the first time I saw it, I wanted more. And it wasn't like a criticism thing, it was just I wanted more of it, because that's how much I liked it. I think the only thing that I would have changed at the end is how much monologuing Raylene was doing. I wish there was a little bit more, like...
A little too much normal villain
Yes,
trope.
like, yes, like, it was a little too...
Twiddle your mustache and
Yes.
tie someone to a train
Yeah,
track.
this is definitely the James Bond villain moment where they're revealing the plan before he puts one in their gullet. You know?
Yeah.
For sure.
I think she was kind of trying to be like, look what I've become, brother. Look what I've done. I am amazing. You should love me too.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, you've been
Stop
off
paying
doing all
attention
this
to other
little
people.
Stuff. I've got the big picture in mind. You should
Yeah.
come with me.
She
in the
needs
picture.
healthy boundaries.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, she's got lead poisoning
Selene
now, so...
and I kept being like, is there like a...
Incest.
Incest.
I had that vibe a few times.
Was it in the book? They weren't brother and sister in the book, were they?
Spoiler.
I think I saw...
They
I
refer
briefly
to
read
themselves as
something.
siblings, but I can't remember now.
Okay. I picked up the book like this afternoon because I was like, there's a book. Oh, I didn't know that.
It's good.
So I have it. I just haven't started reading it. But when I was skimming through synopsises, I think they had someone was doing differences between the book and the show, and they mentioned like they're not actually siblings. So,
But they grew up together.
but they
as
grew
young-
up together. So maybe
Yes.
there's something even like that where they didn't really touch on in the show where they were
Not technically
brother
blood
sister,
related.
but maybe not technically blood related, and so then it was.
Is there
I think
still
that's
a
what it is.
romantic? I guess there's not a romantic one here. It's just a vibe that you get. But do you get that vibe from those characters in the book?
A little bit, but definitely I wouldn't even say there's an undertone in the show. There's an overtone in the show.
She might be a little obsessed.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe just comes from the length of time that they've been separated, that she's been working to getting her brother back. So when she finally gets him back, there's this outpouring of emotion that she can't really focus and control.
I know, but that possessiveness turns up. You see it in the flashback when him and Kel
Yes.
are first getting together.
Yeah, on
she
the beach.
comes in and sees the beach.
That, and that's when she decides, I think, to sell the envoys out. I think that was her decision moment.
Yes, but there was also this kind of, and maybe it's just me projecting, or again, I watch a lot of Game of Thrones, like jealousy.
Yeah.
Even though they were lovemaking on the beach.
You see, I think where that stems from is the fact that when you get that flashback of them as kids in the cupboard, he's her ultimate protector.
Sure.
And I think that moment of jealousy is more about losing him to somebody else.
He cares more about someone else
Yeah,
than
it's
her
like she
now.
sees him drifting away
I
from
hope you're
being
right.
the overall protector. And I think part of that just is coming from that very, very broken home that they were in, where the mother was constantly being beaten. Who knows what the guy figure that we find out Tack disposed of in an acid swamp. Good call. Who knows what he was doing to her too. So I think it's more of a fear than a jealousy, a fear of losing him with maybe a tinge of jealousy, just in the way it was played on screen. But I think it comes more from there that he protected her, he got rid of the bad guy, and now he's leaving for someone else. Why is he leaving for someone else?
I mean, that's what I accepted in the end.
Yeah.
But I'm stubbornly
Maybe.
sticking to
Well,
they
and you
were
can
right.
even see it
Maybe
as...
the actress is just actually attracted to the guy.
This happens.
It does happen.
I mean, I look around at the posters
I
on the
don't
wall
blame
here and
her.
realize I'm my wife doing a show. So.
We've done quite a few together.
Yeah. Is there anything I haven't addressed that you'd like to talk about from the show?
Would you be re-sleeved?
Would I be re-sleeved? Yeah, my body's getting knackered. I'd like a new one.
Same.
Just up the model.
Yeah, I mean,
a different model.
I'm kind of tired of this, old Ford Escort. I wouldn't mind re-sleeving into a Ferrari.
Yeah, only if I had the money though. Like, I don't want to be re-sleeved into like a worse model.
Oh
Right.
no,
You
only
wanna
upgrades. Yeah,
Only
I'm only
upgrades.
talking upgrades.
But like, I have like several
Bunch of
chronic
maths.
illnesses, so like,
If we
yes,
could just not. Yeah.
definitely.
I don't know.
I think I would do it once. I don't think I'd want to continually do it. But you could probably become addicted to it.
That was my
Yeah.
instinct.
Slippery
like,
slope
Maybe
sort
once
of
or
thing.
twice. I don't think I'd want to live.
I don't want to live 900 years.
No.
That's too long.
That's too many years.
I think if you had a sense that you had regrets or a bucket list you didn't get a chance to, I guess, experience, it would be worthwhile to re-sleep, and like with the grandma and the guy.
Yeah,
But I think the show...
kind of a bucket list sleeve.
Yeah, bucket list sleeve. I think the show presents this dilemma very well in the sense that there does seem to be a too much line, and the Meths just don't know this is what they've always done.
They're
They've
addicted
long
to the
passed
power.
that
They're
line.
long, and the Grounders are trying to attain it because they've never really had it. So there's nothing in the middle, as you've said, and I think the middle is what the show is kind of trying to get you to think about. So I don't know. God, that got
Interesting.
philosophical.
How does
Sometimes I have some.
How does Altered Carbon compare to some of the other shows that you've seen in the last few years?
Compared to other ones that I've seen, I think it was leaps and bounds ahead of some of them. So,
Especially in the dystopian genre.
yes, especially like I think you kind of touched on it. They usually tend to be darker and just dark, gritty, and that's about it. Maybe there's some cool things, but this one
This one had
definitely
a more real feel
it
to
brought
it.
in more of a real feel. It brought in the lightheartedness. It showed life's not all dark and gritty. There's feelings, there's stories, there's all of this other things, and it really weaved it out and made it a kind of a whole tapestry and a real story. It felt real,
I mean, for me, it probably goes into my top 10 for the last 5 years at least. And the first thing I Googled after watching the last episode for the first time is, when is Altered Carbon Season 2 coming? Or is there going to be an Altered Carbon Season 2? Which we have found out, as I said earlier, is coming in February.
February 27th.
On a streaming platform that really should pay Couch Potatoes.
They're our
royalties.
unofficial non-sponsor.
Yes.
We watch a lot of their shows.
Yes, we do, because they have a lot of good original content.
They
They
do.
do.
I was just gonna, you know me, I'm gonna reserve my answer to the question you're asking until the show's end, because I want
Yeah.
to watch more before I make that decision.
If it ended now, it would be in my top 10 for the last 5 years. I can't say what Season 2 is going to do, partly because I've already researched and found out that Joel is not back. Most of the characters are, but the actors that were playing them are not, which is going to be something very unique to this show because of the re-sleeving aspect.
Yeah.
But in very, very positive news, one of our favourite characters is back, and that is Poe.
And he'll be played by the same guy.
He will be played by the same actor, and I mean, my guess is it's just another version of AI Poe on a different planet, since that one was destroyed, but knowing that he is back and going to be in season 2 was quite a joyous finding.
I think that I would have to say that the only other show that in this genre that kind of like made me think as much as this one did would be Person of Interest. Like I think that's the only one that I've liked as much, was still a dystopian kind of like world-esque thing that I thought was as clever and as well done overall. But once again, you're right. Like season 2,
And
we'll
we did
answer
that
a lot of
podcast
things. Yes,
together,
we did.
and we agreed it was a very, very clever show that it kind of hit its apex, and then the last season wasn't as wonderful.
I
but-
still
Well,
like
I think
it.
it's because I also think it's because of the shorter season
Yeah.
and just the
way the network
the way the
treated it.
network treated it. Yeah.
networks.
Right.
I think for me, it's not a dystopian show, but I think the last show that made me think this hard and that had this type of production value and was also sci-fi was Sense8, which was another Netflix show.
Yes. Produce more like those.
Dollhouse made me feel a bit like this one did as well.
Is it just because of Dyke and Lockman?
No, I thought Dollhouse was a brilliant show. I
It
wish
is
it
a
had
brilliant
another 5 seasons, but
I wasn't being glib with just about Ben's preferences. I had Westworld vibes off this. Even though we're not talking about killer robots, it's this, we don't know how far into the future and near future, but not necessarily such a near future. There's very, very advanced concepts. We're only going to see the outside world for the first time in season 3. Everything is in the park up front. But I have a feeling that show makes me think and teases my imagination the same way this one does. Just, it's that same sort of science versus faith. How far should humans really go? AI becoming sentient. All those kinds of themes just applied in a different way. So that's a comparable show to me, quality-wise as well.
yeah,
I recommend it.
that's one I have to watch at some point.
Yeah, I haven't seen that
I
one
haven't
either.
seen it either.
All right, well, we'll kind of.
You can also listen to CPU's podcast episodes on the subject.
It was brilliant.
Ben is a member of
I will, but I want to watch it first.
Okay, fair.
Yeah.
So we'll kind of take the
That was a
step
short
off
spot.
the end here and crash into the bay, just like the head above the clouds. And I will ask you, would you recommend this show to others, and why?
Yes, because it's awesome and amazing, and it, as the phrase Kylie used, teases your mind. It literally, it makes you think, and I think it's so intricate and beautifully weaved that even though you don't know where you're going, by the time you get there, you're just like, oh my god, you planted these seeds in the very beginning, and you never left them.
Yeah, you nurtured
just
them all the way through, even though we couldn't see it
Yes.
until it paid off.
couldn't see the trees through the forest, but it was amazing when I got there.
I
Through
agree
the
with
trees, whichever way that phrase goes.
Something about trees.
I don't know, there were trees. We're done.
There's leaves.
There was some foliage.
I would recommend it to my science fiction devotees. I don't know if there's a universal recommendation.
I would agree with that. Anybody that's into any sort of sci-fi, I would 100% tell to watch
Because this is pure sci-fi, and if you don't like sci-fi, you're not gonna like alternative.
Right.
Doesn't like sci-fi.
That's
It's all natural.
There are some sad people on the planet.
Hashtag sad.
Yeah. And, their stacks are just faulty.
There you go.
I would definitely recommend this show. Definitely to my sci-fi people. I've recommended it regardless, and to some people that I wasn't sure if it was going to be their thing, and they still enjoyed it. For me, I get very dazzled by aesthetic and sound design and music choices, so a lot of times when I'm watching a show like that, for the first time, that's what I'm taking in. And to see that there is so much more depth to it than just the aesthetic, that's the ultimate payoff for me. If everything can come together, if everything feels intentional and thoughtful, that to me is great. So, I remember watching this show for the first time and thinking, I'm watching that again. which is crazy to think about how much great content there is out there. That I actually want to go revisit something. Full hour episodes, 10 of them again. Yeah, and I think I'd probably watch it again.
A little Easter egg. Max Headroom appears in the show.
Yes.
He does.
My 80s self jumped up and down like a squealing schoolgirl.
Tubular.
All right, well, it looks like we would all recommend the show, and at this point, I will hand it back over to Kylie to give you your beautiful summation.
You gotta ask them if they're gonna keep watching.
Oh, yes, are you going to watch season 2?
Yes.
Yes.
Are you going to binge watch season 2?
Probably.
Yeah, there's
Probably.
no other way. For me.
I might have to binge watch season 1 and then season 2.
All right, well, hopefully
Again.
I will see you all back around this table when we talk about season 2 at some point in the future. But until then, I'll hand you off to Kylie, our chief couch potato, for this.
For this, which is thanking Julianne, Selene, Kels, Ben, Spencer for moderating, me for trying to keep up, to talk about Altered Carbon Season 1. And because we talked about Altered Carbon Season 1, it's now time for the credits. Couch Potatoes Unite! Exclamation point was produced by Back Pocket Productions, run by yours truly, the Chief Couch Potato, which is really another way of saying executively produced by me, Kylie Piette. My associate producers are Krista Pennington and Selene Rezmer. I edit this podcast, and our logo is by Rebecca Wallace. Our marketing graphic artist is Krista. Our theme song was written by Sarah Milbratz and sung by Sarah, Amy McDaniel, and Kelsey Rezmer. Kelsey played the keyboard, Ian McDonough played the bass, Christian Somerville played the guitar, and the whole kit and caboodle was engineered and produced by Kyle Aspinall and Christian. We hail from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Please, if you like what you hear, take the time to rate us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, or Google Play, or wherever you find your podcasts. Give us stars, give us comments, give us reviews. Let us know how we're doing. Send us a message. We might just read it on the podcast. Tell us what you like, what you don't like, what we should keep, what we should toss. You know how it goes. And if you have suggestions on shows we might consider, contact us at our website, couchpotatoesunite.wordpress.com, where we have a guest book, by email at couchpotatoesunitepodcast@gmail.com, or via our social media, Facebook, Twitter at CPU Podcast, and Instagram at Couch Potatoes Unite. Though, of course, we add new and old shows to chat about around the water cooler all the time. We always have several more new episodes coming down the pike. Just listen to our intros, and if you miss old episodes or want to know in general what we cover, just find us. We are everywhere and searchable wherever you look for things on the internet. You can search for us, or you can subscribe at our website, our channels, our social media accounts. Stay up on our new events and episodes. Until the next time, Altered Carbon is available to stream on Netflix because that's the network who makes it, not because we love to say their name 10,000 times in an episode, okay? In the meantime, our Altered Carbon panel will next reconvene following the release of the second season at some point, which, as Spencer mentioned, is expected to drop on Netflix on February 27th, 2020. So until next time, until next episode, new episodes are published every Wednesday. Keep listening, keep watching, stay tuned!
Go stack yourself. No, that's not right. Bye!
Bye-bye!